and just get started. My name is Adam Goodman, and I'm an independent financial advisor. Goodman Lifetime Wealth Strategies is my company. I've lived in Las Vegas for almost 20 years now, and specialize in comprehensive retirement planning. I've done hundreds of presentations like this. I've taught classes at the College of Southern Nevada. So ranging, most of the time, they're a little bit longer than our time today, but I really try to condense this down. And so if you have a handout, you'll see the 7 bullet points, right? And this is our objectives today, what we hope to cover and that you get out of the material. Because this is a group setting and I am an investment insurance license, we always have to have this up for compliance. It's important to understand that oftentimes the right choice for one person is not always the right choice for someone else. Always recommend before you implement anything, discuss that with a licensed professional. Each person's situation is unique and different, risk tolerances and so forth, so definitely need to be aware of that. And with that, having a plan is number one, by far the most important thing. And really the next 6 steps support having a plan, right? They are parts of a plan. Now for some of you, you may have some additional parts to your plan, right? So not every person is going to have every piece of this that they need to look at in the same importance level, right? But the reason I have this picture of a map and an airplane is the way I think about it is as you're transitioning, whether from the working years into the retirement years, if you are already in the retirement years, but maybe it's not going exactly how you hope because interest rates are coming down, because stock market volatility is higher. Maybe something changed in your life, living situation, right? Married to single, widow type thing. So having a plan, being aware, reassessing when things change, opportunities change. But the reason why I have the plan is, how many of you, if you're going on a trip, would be excited to get on a plane if somebody said to you, I don't know when we're leaving, I don't know exactly where we're going, but hop on board. It'll be fun, it'll be safe, don't worry about it. Would anyone sign up for that? 1 out of 10? There's always one person that just, doesn't care. Just wants to have fun, figure it out, it'll work out, right? And in some cases it will. But again, the challenge that I've seen is that most people's margin of error has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller as, again, interest rates declined, right? Maybe insurance costs have gone up. So having a plan, being aware, right? That's the first thing. And I think if anything we can learn from 2020 and 2021, going through what we're all still going through, is there's a lot of risk and uncertainty out there, right? So we talk about these risks all the time, right? Live a long time, you might need more money to support that, right? Interest, we talked about, right? All these other risks. Passing away too soon, interest rates change. Government can change the rules, taxes can change, right? We all just experience other risks that I didn't have on here, right? A health pandemic, right? Shutting down the economy. Those are other risks that, right? And I'm not saying that has to be part of your plan, but I used to have that on here like for the first couple of months, but then it stopped kind of being fun, as it kind of funny as we're in like month 17 and 18, and right? So as you're going about thinking about your plan, whether you're doing things yourself, whether you ask someone to help you, someone like a professional, you need to be aware. So many people in my industry, again, I'm independent. So what that means is I don't work for a large corporation. I'm not mandated to do things a certain way. And if you ask someone, hey, I'm concerned about my retirement, what do you think we should do? And they start talking about how you could just have your money invested, right? Oh, you should buy this, you should have this. Because a lot of times people just come up and ask me just really kind of questions like, do you think this is good or bad, right? And the answer, I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad for you. I don't know your situation, right? But planning, when you do that, right, you're looking at all these other components. You're assessing your risk tolerance. You're assessing your income needs. You're assessing And when you do that, you can make so much of a better and informed decision when it comes to the investing side of it, right? And I think one of the challenges in my industry that I see is so many companies and brokers or agents, they just want to jump into investing the client's money, right? Because that's how they get paid primarily, right? So be aware of that. If you've worked with someone, if you may work with someone in the future, right? Everyone's needs is different, but the more complex your needs are in situations, the more you want to start with planning, okay? And so we've laid a good foundation for the importance of having a plan, and now we're going to talk about 6 of the common components to a comprehensive retirement plan. And again, there may be other components, right? If you're heavy into real estate, right? If you have some business interests and things like that. But most commonly, number 1, right, is a retirement income plan. Most people don't want to have to worry about running out of money. They want money coming in for the rest of their life. How many of you, that sound good? Right? So again, the challenge, there's a lot of challenges, but maybe your parents or your friends, or hopefully you, right? We're in the old way, right? You worked for a company for 30, 40 years, I'm not 40, but 25, 30 years, right? And when you stopped working, then you had a pension, and they would continue to pay you for the rest of your life, right? And then Social Security kicked in and added a little bit more, and then you had your own savings on top of that, right? But the challenge is that companies realize, wow, those pensions are very expensive, right, to support. Wow, we're not earning the return that we had projected. Wow, people are living a lot longer, right? So they shifted the responsibility to the individual, the new way. And they said, hey, we have a 401k. You can contribute whatever you want. 0, right, or 403b or 457, right, whatever, right? And in many times they'll incentivize you with the match, but it's still the main responsibility to assess all these risks, to plan for all these risks, to navigate all this is on the individual, right? And as that nest egg gets bigger, the impact of making great decisions or terrible decisions is just magnified, right? And so, old way, new way, be aware, especially if the new way is important to, is impacting, is the system that you're in, right? Also, I find that people sometimes struggle as, just mentally, right, with the idea of, well, I've been doing this for 20, 30 years, it worked out great, so I don't understand why I need to make a change or I should change, right? And so conceptually, right, so if you had like a really great, really heavy stock portfolio, right, the last 20 years, it's done relatively well, with a couple bumps in the road, right? But if you held in there, you hanged in there, you did pretty good, right? And if you're in the accumulation years, in most cases, that's what you should be doing, right? But as you are transitioning into retirement or in retirement, preservation years, distribution years, the strategies for accumulation are completely different than preservation and distribution. Preservation and distribution, there's some differences, but they're more closely aligned, right? And that's where I see a lot of people in that 55 to 70 age range just really mentally struggle and challenge, right? And it really depends on if you're doing it yourself or if you have a broker, someone you've been working with for a long time. A lot of companies in our industry just focus on accumulation, right? And they're always trying to get you to take risk, keep it in the market, hang in there over time. Anyone ever heard those things? Right? And that works out most of the time until it doesn't. Right? So it's not bad advice, but is that good advice for you in your situation and how your life has changed or not, right? So this is a great resource that a lot of people find helpful to kind of understand that and go, you know what? Yeah, when in my working years, I was very heavy in stocks and stock funds, right? And there are other things that aren't on here, right? So real estate is a very commonly held, asset class. Right? But that's definitely would be in that top triangle as far as risk, but it's a unique asset class, right? Because of the liquidity features, and it can also create some income. But quite often, especially as people are transitioning from the accumulation years to the preservation or distribution years, what they need to be doing is looking at de-risking, going down the pyramid, going down the triangle. So having a lower percentage of things at the top and having a higher percentage in things at the bottom, right? And so one of the challenges is that if you want to do things on your own, you may have access to some of these things, but not all of these things, right? And if you're working with an advisor or company, they may only have access to some of these things, not all these things. They may have personal biases, right? So really if you are working with a professional, you want to know what tools do they have access to or not, right? And so here's another visual example. And as much as possible, I try to give comparisons that people understand, because I understand that the financial world can be confusing, the terminology, right? But most people do understand, you know, a hammer, a screwdriver, a wrench, right? Are those things good or bad? What do you think? Neither. It depends, right? If you need to hang a picture on the wall, right, you're going to want a hammer to bang that nail in, right? But if you have a leaky sink or toilet, the hammer is not the right tool for the job, right? Any golfers in the room? Got a few, right? We're in Vegas, a lot of great golfers. Well, you know, putter, wedge, driver, they're different tools. Well, what do you need? I don't know. Are you on the tee or are you on the green? Right? Are you okay with the chance of going out of bounds? Driver might be the club, right? But if you want to lower that variance, lower that risk. And so how does that relate to the retirement world? Well, you see there's a handful of financial instruments here. So one of the things that people like yourself tend to be confused a lot about is annuities, right? Oh, I've heard that annuities are bad, or oh, you got to be careful, you don't want to buy an annuity, and they're just a different tool. But they can be one of the most important tools in a comprehensive retirement plan. So you need to focus on what you want. Don't care what it's called, care what it does. What do you want your money to do for you? And then understand, or just like I said, a driver, you might hit it 300 yards, you might go out of bounds. Are you okay with those outcomes, or do you really want to narrow that range of outcomes, right? So you definitely want to learn about annuities and determine if annuities are right for me. If so, what type of annuities? Am I using it for income? Am I using it for safe accumulation? Am I using it as a bond replacement? Here's a visual, right? A lot of people look at this. So the red is the stock market, S&P 500, 20 years, right? Goes up, goes down. You can do really well, you cannot do well, right? The green line here, that's an index insurance approach, right? When the red goes up, it goes up, but doesn't go up as much. When the red goes down, the green doesn't go down at all. A lot of people like that idea, right? Hey, I don't need to hit a home run all the time. I just don't want to have strikeouts all the time, or I don't want to go backwards, right? And so I have people look at this and go, hey, that green line looks really good. I think I want some of my money. What is that? Well, it's a fixed index annuity. Oh, I don't want an annuity. Why do you care what it's called? Right? Just care what it does for you, right? Hammer, screwdriver, wrench, right? Driver, wedge, putter. So, income plan. And for most people, after they've squared away their income plan, when they have excess assets, they go, hey, now we can invest for growth. Now we can accept volatility. We can embrace the stock market because you have time on your side because you're not relying on that money for your lifestyle, right? And when it comes to investing, these are the two most important things I think you should think about. What is my risk capacity? So capacity is your ability to sustain losses without it negatively impacting your lifestyle. So any advisor should be asking you questions like this, right? When do you begin to expect withdrawals on a regular basis? How much do you rely on income? And you can see, depending on your answers, there's a number score, right? So if you're starting right away, you have a 0, right? But if you have time and you're not relying on income, it's going to give you a higher score. The higher score is going to give you what? A higher suggested risk allocation, right? I've talked to, let's say 1,000, hundreds of people like yourself, right? And many people, where you want to be is you want to have a higher risk capacity than your risk tolerance, right? Where people go array, and we've seen problems and plans not work out, is when they have a low capacity, but their money is working for them in a way where They're like, hey, I don't mind the roller coaster. I can hang in there. But they didn't have the capacity to sustain the downturns for a sustained period of time. So the capacity is your ability, right? So that's a logical perspective. And your risk tolerance is all about your emotions and how comfortable you are, right? Do you open that statement every month, and if it's lower, you get freaked out, right? So ask yourself, if the market goes down, right, 25% overnight in a short period of time, how are you going to react? It's just, if it's down more over a longer period of time, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to cash and say, hey, I can't afford to take any more losses? Are you going to hang in there? Or are you going to add money to your account to take advantage of lower prices? I'm not going to put any of you on the spot. You don't have to answer. But think about those things. If the answer is one of the first two, I'm going to go to cash or I'm going to move to things that are more conservative, you may want to reassess your investment plan because you are short-circuiting the process. You're making it harder on yourself to be successful. The reason why equities deliver a higher expected performance over time is because of the volatility, right? So you have to ask yourself, is that appropriate for me at this point in my life? Maybe the answer was yes during your working and accumulation years, but maybe not so much during your retirement years, right? And there's nothing wrong. Most plans are going to have a balance, right? And that's the key. Just like we had these different tools in these different golf clubs, you need a combination, right? You want access to different tools at different times. Most important thing in this area, I think you need to be aware of, because the financial world is changing, has changed, right? Traditional equity investment portfolio was stocks and bonds, and you vary the percentages based on your age, your risk tolerance, right? The problem is bonds are greatly impacted by interest rate movements, right? And they dramatically benefit when interest rates decline, right? They also, the opposite happens when interest rates increase. So you can lose money with your bonds or bond investments when interest rates rise. Did you guys know that? A few of you? No? Okay. Very important, right? Interest rates. So you got to be careful, right? They say in the investment world, past performance is not indicative of future results, right? But people always say, how has it been doing? Right? So we have to, we understand, we want to know both things, but just because a bond portfolio did very well the last 4 or 5 years does not mean it's going to do well the next 4 or 5 years. It did very well in the last 4 or 5 years because interest rates decline. So what's your outlook? Do you believe interest rates are going to go negative in the United States of America? You might want to, then you might like to be allocated to bonds. If you think, not likely to happen, might cycle higher, I'd be very cautious with that. Right? If you're doing things yourself, if you're working with an advisor, what tools do they have access to? Are they doing things the old way or the new way, right? I have, I'm sure you do too, right? I have a nice, kind of like a computer, but, phone, computer, right? There are some people that at their home, they only have this, and there are other people where they still have the rotary phone that plugs in the wall, right? Is it good or bad? Well, if all you want to do is talk to someone, they both do that, right? But if you might want some other tools, right? So you can text, right? You can check the internet or Google Maps or, right? Well, the investment world is the same thing. So if you just want to use stocks, bonds, and cash, it may work out. It's like that rotary phone. It's like that tube television, right? You may want to embrace technology like we have in so many other areas, right? Healthcare, technology, right? So as the world changes, it's your choice. If you want to change with it, and would that be better for you? And then the big question is, in what way, right? So these are different financial tools. I've worked with all of them over the years. Right now, I'd say for the past couple of years, and looking forward, I believe this is the optimal mix in some capacity of, so the blue is traditional stock market stuff. You can do really well when things are going well, and you lose when things are going bad, right? And then the purple or the pink is that green line that I showed you, right? That index insurance where you get some of the gains in good times and none of the losses in bad times. And then the orange is what we call structured notes. I've been working with them for about 6 years. It's a sophisticated product. They're not available to consumers. They're distributed through advisors, right? So if you're not working with an advisor, you don't have access to them typically. And most advisors don't know how to use them, right? Because They may not have embraced the different tools, right? So I'm not doing this to promote myself primarily. It's to educate you and to understand somebody is always going to be making money off your money, right? Where your money is, a bank, a brokerage, right? But the question is, what are you getting out of the deal? That's the most important question, right? Because I believe that you should come first, right? The company should profit in service to you, not at the expense of you, right? And I don't think that that's the case in general in my industry. So it's a great privilege to be able to get up here and try to share that message and spread more of that message, right? And then hopefully you can take it and implement it to whatever ways helpful for you, and then share that message and so forth. So these are some of the common challenges. I kind of touched on a few of them already. Different companies, different advisors, stocks and bonds, right? Volatility, right? In March, they went down 35%, and then over the next, they're doing great, right? So it's an interesting time because a lot of people have more money than they've ever had, right? Because of the stock market and real estate markets, what they've done, and because they're not able to do all the traveling and the trips that they normally would do, right? So they're spending less, saving, what value, if any, are you getting from your other options? Because some people will say, oh, well, the value of the bonds is there a buffer against stock market volatility. I don't think, right? And they're not wrong. I just think there are other tools that will accomplish the same thing, but give you a better return, right? And maybe even a better buffer, right? Because a no-loss guarantee is better than a bond which they don't have the no-loss guarantee, and you should expect to lose money if interest rates rise, right? On that holdings, right? So active and passive, when you're talking about your stocks, that's a whole other conversation. I'm not going to get into it. I'm starting to fall a little bit behind, so I'm going to pick it up. Things you can do yourself and understand that there are some things that you're not able to do yourself, and it may be worthwhile to engage a professional at a cost to you, right? And some of those things you can have a professional help you with at no cost to you, right? Investments are different than insurance, right? We'll talk a little bit, Medicare is step number 6. There's a lot of great Medicare services and people that can help you with Medicare decisions, and I'll share with you my perspective and the way I look at that a little bit. So step number 4 is maximize Social Security benefits. One of the most important decisions, and we've seen this sort of invert, this, I'd say over the last 5 years or so, because a lot of people would take the approach of, I am going to take my Social Security early and I'll let my money grow. Have you guys heard that? Thought about that, right? So there's no right or wrong with this stuff, right? Because some people, they don't trust the government and the money's not going to be there and all that stuff. And if you're in that camp, then that might support that, right? I'm not in that camp. I think the government has done a good job of showing that they can print money if and when they want to, right? I don't have my money printer at home, but, so I think that, all these systems, Social Security, Medicare, it's going to change over the years, right? But the way I think about it, and I think history has shown that, is they're not going to take from today's retirees, right? They don't want to impoverish, right, the seniors and right? They're going to make today's workers work longer, pay more taxes, pay into it more, right? Support. Now, of course, there'll be changes to certain programs and co-pays and all that, but I'm just saying, I don't think Social Security, if you get it today, I don't think you have to worry about that check, just going away someday type of thing. But the reason why I say it's so important is the longer you wait, the bigger your benefit. So it's an 8% increase in the benefit each year that you wait, okay? And when interest rates, when you could get 4, 5, 6% on your investments without risk, then it may make sense to take the government money and let your money grow. But now on your money, it's harder to grow it without taking a lot of risk, right? So a lot of times it makes more sense to take your money early and let this grow, right? However, and that's what a lot of people focus on, that with one area, right? If you are, there's 2 other important areas to look at that I often see people overlook and factor in. So if you are married, right, oftentimes being aware that for the surviving spouse, that's a big part of a retirement plan, right? There's 3 parts to it. How does it look like for us? How does it look like for her if he passes first? How does it look like for him if she passes first, right? So if there's one spouse that has a higher retirement benefit, oftentimes it makes sense to at least defer that, because then the surviving spouse, right, the rules, how those rules work is you're going to get your benefit or your spouse's, whichever is greater, right? So if you have one benefit instead of two benefits at $2,500, if there's one at $2,000 and one at $3,000, the surviving spouse can depend on $3,000, right, versus a $2,500 level. Also taxes. So Social Security dollar, a dollar Social Security benefit is taxed at a lower rate than an IRA dollar or a pension dollar, right? And there are some people that don't pay any taxes on their Social Security retirement benefits. Right? There are certain rules you need to be aware of. And so this is a big area that's overlooked. And this is, if this applies to you, you definitely want to be working with someone that incorporates tax planning, right? Because I'm sure you guys have heard of IRAs and Roth IRAs, right? Well, if you're working with an advisor, they're making the same money, the same fee, whether it's here or here, right? But you may have a completely different outcome because one is taxable distributions and one is tax-free, right? And are any of you concerned about taxes going up in the future? Right? I've asked that question for 10 years. Hands always go up, right? But I'm going to say we should be more scared based on what's happened in the past year and a half, right? Who knows exactly, but stay tuned, right? Because I think there's going to be a lot going on the last 3 months of this year, right? We have, the Senate's going to reconvene and all, they've been focused on other stuff, right? So but it's coming, it's happening. To what degree, to whom it's going to impact, we don't know. If you get on our stay informed list, we'll do our best to keep you informed. But being tax aware. And the more that you're concerned about that, then the more proactive today it makes sense to be, right? People, I've been asking that for 10 years, but tax rates today are lower than they've been in a long time, right? And so hopefully it stays that way for another year or two and you got some little bit of time. But they are already, even with no changes, they are already scheduled to increase in 2025, right? So tax planning, right? Secure Act went in effect, changing RMD. So you don't have to take it at 70.5. You can wait till 72. Your beneficiaries, the rules change there as far as their options and their rules that they have to comply to, right? They have the tax changes. Last year we had to deal with the CARES Act and how that, right? You don't have to take an RMD if you don't want to, plus some other things. This thing's always changing, right? So if you're working with a professional, some people, it's expensive to work with an advisor. It may be, but depending on your situation and depending on the value that advisor may bring, you may be improving your plan. They may be putting more money in your pocket, right? If you're paying them X and they're saving you 2X, that could be a value add, right? Healthcare planning, Medicare, long-term care. So Medicare, right, complicated, confusing system, right? What I would say to be aware of is you have companies that are going to be offering you their plan direct, right? I don't like to name companies, but and then they have agents that only sell their plan, right? And then there are independent Medicare agents, and they represent all the different companies and all the different plans, right? And so everything else being equal, I would suggest that you talk to an independent Medicare person, agent, because they're not so focused, they're not restricted by this is the plan we sell, right? They could be more focused on you. So I'm going to give you 2 questions, to focus on, right? I mean, the main decision most people need to figure out first is which way of Medicare is right for them. Medicare, traditional Medicare, where you're going to be paying out of pocket for a supplement, right? Are you going to go into the world of Advantage, right, which is typically lower cost, right? But it may not be, it's typically more restrictive. So do you travel a lot? Do you not travel a lot? HMO, PPO. Are there certain prescriptions that you have? That may be impact, right? Are there certain doctors that you have to see, right? So some people say, well, I've heard this plan's great. Well, that might be great for Lisa, but not for Linda because of some of those different factors, right? And so if you're not talking with an independent agent, if you're just talking with someone that sells the plan that Linda has, that may not be the best plan, for Lisa, right? And the great thing is it doesn't cost you anything to work with a Medicare insurance agent. The government pays them to help you make these decisions. And if you have that, and they're not communicating with you, are available to you to service, right, when a prescription changes or you need a doctor change, then I would suggest you might need to look to someone else, right? Because they are also paid to service that, right? And that's one of the challenges in the industry. Well, there's a lot of people that want to sell you something today, but are they there to service it when you have a question or a need, something changes in the future? Long-term care protection planning, so important in the retirement plan. And I just look at it, it protects everything else. It stabilizes everything else. You don't have to rely on having to sell off other assets if that happens. A lot of different ways to address it. Most people aren't aware of all the options, right? Traditional long-term care insurance, what people tend not to like about it is that if they don't need the benefit, all that money's gone, right? We call that use it or lose it. Right? Also, your cost could increase over time. That's how long-term care has traditionally worked. There are people that bought those policies many years ago, and they've experienced cost increases. But dollar for dollar, it's in most cases, it's a great value, right? But so most people want their other assets or want to have money coming in if care is needed, but they don't want to have that premium payment or that ongoing payment, right, in retirement. So there are other strategies that may be available to help address that. And I talk, if you want to get on our list, I have a 25-minute recorded webinar on this that I did a couple years ago, and then also one we did just a few months ago where we walked through several different examples and situations talking about, Lisa and John, here was their situation, here's what they were doing before, here's what they were trying to accomplish, here's how they were able to accomplish it, and so forth. Because there's three things that we need to be aware of, right? Hopefully we all live a long and healthy life, and we need the financial resources to support that, right? But tomorrow's promised to none of us, right? We could all go like that, right? Or we could have an extended care issue, right? So your plan needs to factor in any of those situations and work, in my opinion, in any of those situations, right? So lastly, estate planning. So in a comprehensive plan, wills, trusts, healthcare directives. Some people say, oh, I don't have a lot of assets. This doesn't apply to me. Okay, so you might not need a trust, right? But every one of us needs a healthcare directive, right? A financial power of attorney, right? A lot of people move here from other states, right? Oh, I'm squared away. I got that done in California 5 years ago. Nevada hospitals probably might not recognize that California power of attorney, right? That California directive. So there's two different areas when it comes to estate planning. One is the documents, and then also if you are trying to be intentional, if it is important to provide for someone else when you're no longer here, right? A surviving spouse, beneficiaries, then you also want to look at the financial tools that you are utilizing, right? Stepped-up basis is one of the things that has been talked about, right? Is potentially changing. Most people do not like to talk or think about life insurance because they think about, ooh, I need to die. That's not for me, right? But unless the rules have changed, all of us are going to die at some point, right? So think about, right? Life insurance, you're turning, depending on age and health, but generally you're turning a little bit of your money into a lot of their money, and it's income tax free. And so if you want to have a defined outcome and you want to factor in taxation and have liquidity, it may be very important. But a comprehensive, tax-efficient income investment protection legacy plan, you think about it this way, you put all the pieces together. Hopefully you don't have gaps. Hopefully the information I share with you has been very helpful, very impactful to help you. Today is not designed to answer all your questions. It's designed to help you figure out what questions are relevant to you, right? And if you get a good answer or two, great. But the most important thing is to not have anything overlooked, right? So they told me we have till 45, so we have another 11, 12 minutes, and they wanted to have time for Q&A. I got a few more slides I can share with you around planning concepts or planning tools that we have. But before, the priority is you guys. So does anyone have any questions or anything they want to, we just covered, try to jam in, what I usually take an hour on in our 30 plus minutes.
Why do you think annuities have gotten such a bad name?
Two reasons. One, I think that some of the older products sucked, just plain English, right? I mean, people don't like the idea, well, I can't get my money out, and if I die, the insurance company keeps my money. Okay, so don't buy one of those types of annuities, right? Two, so we have the fixed annuities, fixed index annuities, variable annuities. Some people say, and there's a company that does a very aggressive marketing campaign around annuity fees, and you don't want annuities, they're expensive. Well, variable annuities typically have, on average, about 3% annual fees, right? Some more, some less, depending on the product and if you have an income rider, a death benefit rider, and all those things. Okay? What are the fees on a fixed annuity? What are the fees on a fixed index annuity? Right? The answer is, in most cases, 0. Right? So I also think that there are some companies that don't provide them, right? They're an insurance product. So there's conflicts of interest in the financial services world. If you work with a large corporation, they're always focused on investments. Stock market, stocks and bonds. Well, what's the benefit to them? They're getting an annual advisory fee, right? Is it to their interest for you to take money out of that account and put it into an insurance product? If they provide both, yeah, they shouldn't care. They should be focused on your needs. But not all the companies provide that. Right? Great question.
Yes, when it comes time to take an RMD out, is there any better time during the year to go through to make that withdrawal?
I don't think specifically. I mean, it may be for the individual, right? If you want to know, depending on how that money is working, right? So if it's in the stock market, you may want to factor that in, right, where the market's at, right? If the money's in an annuity, generally we look to do that around the contract anniversary. So that could be a factor. But no, I think it's personal preference. I think in general, if you're on the ball, I like to wait. I like to do it around November, right? Because we do tax bracket management for clients, right? So when we're looking at, should we do a Roth conversion or not, right? Well, what's our income for the year, right? So I don't know. Some people, if they're RMD, right? They're taking the minimum, but other people, they may take more because they have, I had clients, hey, I got to spend $7,000 this year to do a new air conditioner, or hey, we wanted two trips instead of one trip. Okay, well, just be aware where that is tax-wise, right? So, anyone else? Okay.
You just mentioned Roth. Can you take an RMD money and put it in a Roth?
No. However, do we have any more questions? I have a couple slides on Roths because we get asked all the time around Roths. So, you guys want to see my last few slides? Or?
Yeah, on Roth.
Okay. So when it comes to planning, there's a few different approaches I take. It really depends how your needs, how sophisticated and so forth. But a real simple approach that a lot of people find understandable is we call the bucket plan, and it's factored in 3 main principles. You got now, soon, and later, right? And determining what's your timeline. Are you going to need this money in the next year? Is it 2 to 5 years, 2 to 10 years, or is this, hey, rainy day money, right? What's the purpose? Is it income? Is it growth? Is it legacy? Is it protection? And what's your personal risk tolerance? All those factor in, right? So we might have, right, stocks, typically like your most aggressive and growth stuff will be in your later bucket because you can embrace volatility because it's a growth strategy, it's not an income strategy, right? And then you may use some of your fixed annuity, index annuity, structured notes, things like that, a little bit more conservative for your soon bucket. And the now bucket is not invested. It's generally bank money because you plan on using it in the next year, right? And then this is managed, and over time, we're refilling the now bucket from the soon bucket, and when the soon bucket starts to decline, we look at strategically when it's optimal, right? We don't want to sell when it's low. We want to be able to sell, right, after markets have increased, to refill another few years of income, right? So I think it's a pretty interesting time because a lot of people with the market, they're like scratching their head, like, why is the market doing so well? They're like, but it's interesting. People, it's doing so well, I don't want to sell. I don't want to, but they really don't go in any one direction in too long. I think it's an interesting time to look at taking some out of the things that have done really well, locking that in, right? Especially if you're going to need some of that money in the sooner rather than later, right? So that's that approach for people that have other needs as well. So that's part of income planning. But a comprehensive plan, it encompasses these 5 circles and areas. So the estate planning, tax planning, insurance planning, income planning, and investment planning. And the challenge is there's not one advisor that can do all of this effectively, right? To do this well, you need a team, right? Estate planning is generally, and it should be a collaborative team for your benefit, right? This is going to incorporate an attorney to create the right documents, right? And to be communicating with your insurance planner, right, on what the right tools to fund the desires are, right? Tax planning, CPA, enrolled agent, right? So it's not just about tax prep. Tax prep is looking backwards. We're reporting. Here's what happened last year, here's what you owe. Tax planning is looking ahead and talking about, should we do a Roth conversion? If so, in what degree? What amount? Right? So if you have that need, and anything that I'm showing you, if you want more information, let me know. I'm happy to email that to you. We have some stuff on the website you can access. So anyone that wants to look at, comprehensive planning, this is going to give you, 5 or 10 things to ask questions about in each of those areas and go, is that relevant for me now, later, or never? And a lot of people find, I didn't know about that. That's something I need to look into, right? Find out. So, right? So we have this. I'll be happy to email that to you if you want it. So it's got these questions in each of those areas, right? On our website, askadamgoodman.com, you got it. If you got a handout, you can go there on our homepage, just scroll down to the bottom. You could download this free guide. All it's going to ask for is your name and email. You can unsubscribe at any time. I don't chase people, right? But I help people that want help. So this is a great resource, a little bit simpler, especially if you are, I'd say, 5 years approaching retirement or into retirement. And Roth conversions, right? Advantages and disadvantages. So if you're concerned with higher taxes in the future, it probably makes sense to do Roth conversion in some way. To contribute, this is where some people get confused. To contribute to a Roth, you need earned income. You need to be working. If you're not working, you cannot contribute, right? You can't put new money in. But even then, you're limited to $7,000 a year, right? But if you're not working, you can still convert IRA to Roth IRA anytime you want. And when you do that, in the year that you do that, it's going to create taxable income in that year, right? So a lot of the questions we ask is, where's the money going to be coming from to pay the taxes? If it has to come from the IRA, an additional withdrawal, then it may not make sense. If you're not concerned with taxes being higher, right, it may not make sense, right? If RMDs don't bother you, I talk to some people, they hate RMDs, right? They're like, why can't I leave my money in? I don't want to. Okay, well, have it in a Roth, then you won't have RMDs, right? If you are going to be leaving money to someone, right, there's a lot that goes into that, right? IRA, you're leaving taxable money to someone. Roth IRA, you're leaving tax-free money to someone, right? I have a lot of clients where they're retired and their children are very successful, right? So they're in a much lower income bracket than their, successful doctor, lawyer, CPA, son or daughter. So would you rather take money out or convert and pay tax at 12, 15, 22? Or do you want to leave money to them and they got to pay it at 34 or 36, right? Those are some kind of things that a lot of times people don't think about. Disadvantages to Roth conversions, right? So if you're going to convert and you're going to put it in a fixed income account and earn 1 or 2%, I don't know, probably not going to make much sense. To me, we suggest with the Roth, that's generally where it makes sense to take the most risk, right? If we're going to get tax-free growth and distribution, we want to be earning 6, 7, 8% or more on that, right? And especially if we're like, well, I don't need it, so then, okay, let's accept as much volatility as you can stomach, right, for your situation. If you think tax rates are going to be lower in the future, then you might not want to do a conversion, right? If you don't have a good answer for, right, how are the taxes going to be paid, or if it's going to push you up into a higher bracket and you think next year you're going to be in a lower bracket, right? There's some people that, like, let's say you were still working, right? And you worked 9 months of the year and then you were laid off or you retired. You might not want to do the conversion this year because your income, but next year your income should be a lot lower. So then you can start being strategic around that. How's that? Good? Well, thank you very much. It was an honor, a privilege. Hope you got a lot of great ideas. We're in booth 318. We'll be there today. We have some calendars, 2021 motivational calendars, 2022. I think we have a couple, this is kind of cool. We just did this for this, obviously. This is a little vaccine slip card. So if you're vaccinated, go by our booth. You can slide that in there. You don't, I just have one there, but by our booth we have more. And enjoy the expo. Hey, Adam Goodman here. Hope you enjoy the content. Got any questions? Feel free to reach out.